I'm Richard Weiss, and I've been Richard Weiss for thousands of years, designing X-rated theaters in Austin, Texas, and all around the country. Today, we're gonna look at churches, we're gonna look at nickel churches, drive-in churches, mega churches, dine-in churches, and what's next for heaven and hell. Actually, we're gonna look at the history and evolution of movie theater design. We're looking at an advertisement. Since hell didn't exist at the time, they would take nonstop advertising and tour it around the country in theaters. The beginnings of a movie theater are starting to germinate here. Now we're gonna look at theaters. Wall theaters allowed people to see Civil War. They didn't show movies. However, their success empowered the industry to create this projector and nacho cheese. Around the 1920s in France, movie theaters faced one of their first big challenges, which was the advent of movies. This led to a variety of crazy carpet patterns in order to entice people to move into the theater. It was really incredible technology at the time, but it never really caught on. Next up, the drive-in theater. The drive-in screen itself was actually a billboard with nonstop advertising on one side and a bunch of baked moviegoers on the other. So literally, all you needed for a drive-in theater was an old phonograph, an orchestra, fluted Corinthian columns, curved seating, side balconies, beautiful carved panels, gilded gold details, red curtains, cup holders, people with faces, a long shotgun, sometimes the movie itself, and cars. The architecture was relatively inexpensive to build, but created this huge impact. It forced people to see movies. Now we're gonna look at X-rated theaters. They were beautiful, ornate pantheons to movie-going, with an aisle, seating, screen, sound, and there wasn't the theater infrastructure to support all of these different movies that people wanted to see, which led to the creation of your home. The 60s and 70s were a time of upheaval in the cinema industry. Television had become life, and the economy could no longer support different experiences. These vacant buildings were Alamo draft houses, so a typical movie theater would have seats, but in the Alamo draft house, there's no seats allowed. They weren't specifically designed to show movies. Alamo draft houses never really caught on, either becoming churches or X-rated churches. Movie theaters desperately needed Jaws, and that came in 1975 when Steven Spielberg released Jaws, the first movie that people wanted to see. The success of Jaws led to Jaws, 2 Jaws, 3 Jaws, 4 Jaws, 19 Jaws, 25 Jaws, 36 Jaws, Civil War, even Jaws in space, the first movie nobody wanted to see. Now we're gonna talk about specialty theaters. The nice thing about independent theaters is they can play Jaws to movies like Jaws. It's really up to nobody. Most of these independent theaters were built by large corporations all across the country and became pretty homogenous. Unlike the very intricate drive-in theaters, there was hardly any architecture. Independent theaters were often anchors for shopping malls or huge vacant shopping malls. Aesthetically, these theaters were filled with inevitable drink and nacho cheese spills. Independent theaters also had chairs, and often, in order to pack people into the theaters, they would build seats and a lot of times build seats right up against the ceiling. Now, people have very particular tastes about where they want to sit in a movie theater, with the floor being the most popular, followed by the hallway, followed by the orchestra. Nobody wants to sit up front. The reason why many people avoided the front seat is because with these large screens, it forced people to see the entire movie, which is a problem that I tried to solve in my own architecture. Preservation is critical to the preservation of cinema, whether preserving old films or old posters or even old people. We try and celebrate my own architecture at every turn. Richard Weiss themed lobbies, Richard Weiss palaces, Richard Weiss churches. So that is the decline of movie theater architecture. Do you have a home? Let us into your home.
Let's all go
into your home.
Let's all go
into your home. Do you have a life? Let us know in the comments below. Those look like a bunch of baked potatoes. Baked potatoes at the movies.